Insider reveals wild Bengals trade incoming, which will allow the Bengals more flexibility and assets for this draft, where they're going to be able to take all the help they can get on offense and defense. We're going to be getting into all of it today here on Bengals Digest. Thank you for joining us here today. Thank you also for the recent support, helping us push to 4,000 subs. We really appreciate all the help from our subscribers and the support and love you guys have been showing us as me and Michael count us down to draft day. We're getting closer and closer. If you notice you're not already subscribed and you're part of that 73% who watch but are not yet subscribed, go ahead and join us. It's completely free to do so. We really appreciate the support on that, as Michael and I are giving you all of the reports, all the rumors, all the news as we get closer and closer to draft day. We're getting closer to single digits countdown. We are 10 days away as of today, making this video here to draft day, and then quite a bit of ways away from the regular season. But we're going to be keeping you up to date on all things in between, so be sure to stay tuned. And we have an interesting report revealed by an insider that this player is potentially on the trade block. They could be in talks for some teams looking to trade on draft day. But before we get into that, I did want to mention that today's video is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 sports picks app where you can get in on all the action. We have some picks to share with you later on, my personal picks for some local sports. But I did just want to mention, thank you, Prize Picks, for sponsoring this video. Be sure to click the link at the top of the description. Also, pin comment down below. Play $5, get $50 instantly in lineups, and use code DIGEST when you sign up, as it really helps out the channel. We appreciate your guys' support on that. Now, getting into the bulk of today's content. Like I mentioned, Jack McKessie came out with an article of USA Today for one player that makes sense for these teams to draft. He did one for every single team. And the player that he came up with for the Cincinnati Bengals is Samaje Perine, the backup running back. Very familiar with him. Left and came back to kind of help with some, veteran presence, run blocking. He's a guy that is pretty beloved in Cincinnati's community and fan base, at least from what I've seen and what I've heard and how I feel. I like him a lot. This is not me in any way advocating that I want him gone, but we got to address it because it's being talked about. So, pull up the quote here by Jack. He states, "The Bengals don't have an obvious trade candidate. Quarterback Joe Burrow and wide receivers Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are virtually untouchable with the value they bring to the team's offense. Cincinnati's previously obvious trade candidate was Trey Hendrickson, but he walked in free agency, signing a multi-year deal with the Baltimore Ravens." He continues on with this. "That leaves Perine, the Bengals' backup running back to Chase Brown. Perine is in the last year under contract in Cincinnati and has made a career for himself as a complimentary back that can catch passes out of the backfield. The Bengals wouldn't receive a massive return for a backup player, but there aren't any other obvious trade candidates." So, I wouldn't get too worried about the fact that the Bengals are going to do this, because let's be honest, the Bengals don't necessarily make trades a ton. But this is something that we have to address, as the Bengals are getting, they've been in a lot of trade talks about possibly trading up on draft day, trading back on draft day, all of the above. And Zach Presnell highlights for us why this would actually make sense for the Bengals to do something like this. He states, "The biggest reason that this idea makes plenty of sense is the fact that the Bengals seem like they're going to draft another running back at some point in the draft. This prospect will likely slot into Perine's role as a backup running back, which makes the veteran expendable. There's a chance the Bengals take a shot on Notre Dame running back Jeremiah Love at the top of the first round, which would certainly make Perine expendable." Now, the reason he states that it seems clear that the Bengals are going to draft a running back is Perine is getting older. We aren't really sure about Taj Brooks yet. And to be honest, Chase Brown is kind of up in the air. Although he is locked in for this year, it's a little unclear about what his future is. So I think it is very likely that the Bengals do take a backup running back in this draft. Now, just to pull up a refresher for what the Bengals have for their draft picks, they're listed here. I personally think that if they're going to trade Perine, I think it would be really valuable to maybe use him in a package deal with a 6th round pick or even a 6th and a 7th round pick and be able to obtain a 5th round pick in this year's draft. And what would they utilize that on? Obviously, you want to take a running back at some point. It's probably not going to be in the first 3 rounds unless, Jeremiah Love does fall to them, in which case he would be most likely the best player available. But someone who I think could fall on their board that Michael actually mentioned in a previous video is Adam Randall out of Clemson. He's a very interesting prospect, wide receiver converted to a running back, and he's currently ranked the 7th overall running back in this class according to ESPN's Big Board. And overall rank for all prospects, he's around 135. So I think that the Bengals could do one of two things. They could either take him with their 6th round pick, or 4th round pick, I apologize, at 110, which he's likely to still be available there, or use, like I said, a 6th and a 7th and Perine to kind of move up into that 5th round, maybe late 4th round, and be able to get Adam Randall at that point. Or a player like him. I really like Randall. I'm not going to go into detail on his statistics and everything, as Michael's already made a video on that. But I think in this case, it does make sense. However, there's going to be some drawback because they brought Perine in as a blocking back who was really good at protecting Burrow. He's good. He's a solid veteran presence in that locker room on the offense, a great backup to Chase Brown. He's probably not going to be RB1 anywhere that he would be traded to. So, I mean, we can be upfront about that. But I do think it makes some sense to, attain some picks by using a player like Perine, who is getting older, and maybe bring some veteran presence that the team, there's plenty of teams out there who do still need some running back depth. And I think it's definitely possible to get some picks to obtain in this draft. Speaking of picks, I did want to bring to you guys, as promised, my picks on Prize Picks. Got some local ones for you here today. So, for Cincinnati, the Reds, I am stating that Brady Singer is going to get less than 5.5 hits allowed. That is my first pick. I'm locking that in. Also, for Ellie De La Cruz, I'm saying more than 0.5 doubles. So he just needs 1. And I think he's going to hit that. Honestly, I really do. And then switching over to NBA, keeping it kind of local in the state of Ohio, I went with Dean Wade to get 1 3-point made. So more than a half. That's what I'm picking. Those are my locks for this week. Again, thank you to Prize Picks for sponsoring this video. Play $5, get $50 instantly in lineups with America's #1 sports picks app. Be sure to click the link at the top of the description below and use code DIGEST. Now, back into the video. I want to know what you guys think. I've brought all these things up. I've mentioned why it kind of makes sense for the Bengals to do this and why it might not make sense for the Bengals to do this. So I want to know what you guys think. Would you be willing to trade Perine and a 6th round pick to hold a pick in round 5? I'm going to say yes on this because I think that if they're going to draft a running back, it makes a lot of sense to give up a veteran presence, maybe bring in a guy, maybe he ends up becoming a starter next year. A year under Chase Brown's wing, whether that's Adam Randall or someone else that they think is valuable in the draft that's going to come in and produce as a good backup back. And again, we have Taj Brooks, a little unsure what he is at this moment. We just haven't seen enough out of him. But I'm going to say yes on this. I'm curious to see what you guys think because I know he is a pretty beloved figure, at least in terms of like some veterans that we have on the Bengals, because there's not a ton of them when it comes to the offense, at least in terms of playmakers. So very curious to see what you guys think on that. Might make sense, might not. If they don't take a running back, I don't think it makes a lot of sense. but I think it's super valuable to have at least one pick in every single round. And if the Bengals are able to obtain that with this trade, I think you get it done. But with all that being said, thank you guys for joining us here today on Bengals Digest, where we're bringing you all the breaking news, rumors, and reports. And we're going to be keeping you up to date as we get closer and closer to draft day. This has been Adam and Yanni with Bengals Digest.